Today we're reviewing Warner Brothers and DC Comics' Batman Arkham Origins. This is the prequel to the previous games of Arkham Asylum and the very popular follow-up to that of Arkham City.
Well, I mean, it's really good to play this game together as a group, really see, how much experience each of us has as a gamer, and it's really nice to watch, how many fails it takes them to really understand how to get through a map or a fight. So it's nice to know that, out of the three of us, at least I know what I'm doing.
Well, we gave the controller to Matt for one scene, and he had trouble figuring out how to punch.
Right? I don't know how to press X! PS3 is completely easy and understandable. That controller's a piece of cake.
Fun! I mean, Dave's a total control hog, and Matthew can't seem to play his way out of a paper bag, but still, it's really, really great.
I don't understand half of what Kyle and Matt are saying.
Please, I'm at least an Adam West.
You're Jean Paul Valley.
Who the hell is Jean Paul Valley?
Or Jean Paul, I guess.
Jean Paul Valley?
Cutscene! Everything stops!
Hey guys, welcome to Critical Hit. Today we are reviewing Warner Brothers and DC Comics' Arkham Origins. It is the early years of Batman's career. Batman has been thus far taking on gangsters and street thugs, and we're about to see him move on to a better class of criminals. Black Mask has put a bounty on Batman's head and has hired 8 very top assassins to come in for what was the sum there?
$50 million.
$50 million and the prestige of being the man who killed Batman. And we later on find out that it was not in fact Black Mask, but the Joker has orchestrated this whole scheme to bring about some sort of catastrophe for the whole city. And we see the fallout of these two characters, Batman and the Joker, meeting for the very first time. It's very much an origin story for both Batman and the Joker, as well as sort of for the relationships you have between Batman and several of the other characters in Gotham City and his relationship with the city itself. But let's talk about some initial thoughts of what we thought about the game here.
I thought the game was pretty fantastic. I mean, it kept the good of the previous 2 games in the series, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and it added more. It took what was good and just added more interesting things that I think it was very clear that designers really thought more about what it would mean to be Batman and decided to even took the gameplay in some new directions that we hadn't seen before.
Along those lines too, I was really impressed by this game, especially because it has a new I think dedication to storytelling through the video game. The other 2 build a lot off Batman lore, but this game out of the 3, I would say, definitely focuses a lot on who Batman is, especially in the comic universe and the movies industry. And taking that and bringing it into this year 2 Batman, putting a fresh light on it. It's really good, powerful storytelling.
Right. Speaking of storytelling, can we say a little bit about what you get from a video game that you're not getting in the comic books and in the movies? Because we've seen Batman in so many different mediums, and video games is one that just seems to keep on succeeding.
I really think what video games do as distinct from books or movies, which are probably the 2 best other examples, is that video games, they immerse the player in the role of the main characters just in a way that just doesn't happen with movies or with books.
And it's one of the strengths of video games. As the player of the main character, at least in this kind of game, you have the chance to experience something in the character, I would say, on a closer level than you really get with other narratives. So, for example, that really big ending where you fight Joker in the chapel. More beat the tar out of him in the chapel. You have this scene where you pin him against the wall and it says, X, punch. And, you could not punch, you could turn off the game and walk away, sure, but you're not going to. You feel the rage that Batman feels on all the deaths and everything the Joker's caused, and you press it again and again and again and again, and it just nails.
You get that similar feeling when you're trying to save Alfred there.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
Like, I'm mashing on that square button there,
Mhm.
like, Alfred, live, buddy, live.
Which, like, I mean, I love comics, I love the medium and everything, but I don't know if I could really experience in the same way the medium of storytelling that video game provides.
No, and that's...
Well, yeah, again, it's interesting to compare what this game did and what a lot of other games do. I mean, a lot of the games now have the button mashing thing. It actually kind of I know it irritates some people, but nonetheless, I mean, what a lot of games started doing once graphics got better and storage capacities got larger. We think like with PlayStation and stuff, is they just started having games with super long cutscenes. Like think the Metal Gear Solid series.
Think Mass Effect.
Or Mass Effect, yeah.
Like it's more goofy than
yeah. Well, and I'm not I love the Metal Gear Solid games. I love Mass Effect. But to me, to make a video game whose story succeeds on the basis of having cutscenes, that would be a little bit like if you went into a movie theater and then would watch just like the text of a book. Projected on the screen for 6 hours or whatever. The book might be great and it might even be a great experience, but you're not making a movie that succeeds as a movie. And so when you have a game that just that really just plays more out like a movie with occasional gameplay sequences. Yeah. It's kind of like it's succeeding as a movie, not as a video game. Yeah. And so one thing I like about what this game's done and what a lot of other games are doing, I think we're seeing a lot more of this on the independent scene. But we're seeing developers figuring out how to make video games artistically succeed as video games. Yeah, not by simply imitating some other medium.
At the same time, those cutscenes were beautiful.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Making them sync so well with the gameplay was nice. The way that you would fade in and out like that. And really even like those moments where, I have to press square now, even though I'm not in my normal gameplay mode here.
It makes you engage with the cutscenes.
It really does, because you don't know what's going to get thrown at you next. Yeah. But and all of the little hints that are being dropped in those leads to, because it's Batman, so it's a detective story as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think of one feature that this game has added that wasn't in before was the detective mode, where you basically get to look at crime scenes and you're using your bat computer. You examine individual pieces of evidence, and you're able to eventually sort of build up what theoretically happened in the crime and sort of zoom forward and backwards in it, and so you get to zoom into the individual events. Where the certain clues make sense, and I know that's probably hard to understand what I'm saying, but when you play the game, it's very elegant and very effective. Absolutely, and it really honestly one of my biggest regrets about it was that I didn't think it was used enough. Even I almost want to see like a Sherlock Holmes game or something like that where you're just doing that. But in this case, it really does make you feel like Batman, not just Batman the guy in the suit who beats people up, but it makes you feel like Batman the detective. And that's something that you just wouldn't have gotten in a movie or a comic book, because in the movie or the comic book you aren't the one solving the mysteries like in the game.
I think that in this game the boss fights lent a lot to your experience of who you are as Batman, and it revealed a lot because you get the fighting side to this. You get to be this master of the martial arts, and you get to use all of his gadgets. You get to be very, very resourceful, so you get to use both the brains and the brawn of Batman in this matchup against people who are essentially your equals in some of these levels. I'm thinking of the Slade fight, for instance. Absolutely. And it was remarkable to me how these different battles seem to continue the story rather than just be this room that you walk into and there's the boss for this level. Yeah. With reference to the other games, there's something about this one that's particularly different about the way that Batman works is when you're fighting all of these guys, he's very, very, very aggressive. And he was never just standing around and doing nothing, for instance, but he's much more brutal. There's instances where he goes too far and accidentally knocks a guy out when he's trying to interrogate him. Yeah. And this is a very rough around the edges Batman. Yeah. He's very fierce because he hasn't developed Batman's sort of almost Batman's stoicism and all of the prep time and everything that goes into being Batman as we know him in the later games. And I guess what I'm trying to say with this is that you really can see in even these small elements of gameplay an overall drive to push this story of a young Bruce who's developing as a character, who's forging these relationships with those around him, with his allies, with Gordon and with Alfred, with Barbara, and even with the villains and what goes on there with the Joker. Yeah, and
absolutely. It's really interesting in the boss fights. A lot of them too. You have this Batman that's a learning Batman. So like we have like the fantastic boss fight between him and Firefly.
Right.
This man who's hovering and has a flamethrower. The beginning of you use your hook claw and you get on him, and he just flies around and knocks you off. And Batman has to figure out in that fight how to use the environment around him to escape danger and also combat Firefly. So it's a really cool learning process mid combat.
I remember the IGN did a sort of an interview before the game was released with one of the developers there, and they talked about how much they loved the Mr. Freeze fight from the previous game.
Yeah.
Which you were constantly having to learn and react and figure out what you can use in this environment to go up against Mr. Freeze. And Mr. Freeze was learning to avoid these things the second time around after you used it against him. And they really liked that idea and wanted to bring that kind of storytelling in a fight scene into this game.
Well,
and I think they succeeded.
Well, yeah, and I think that was actually one of the advantages of using such unknown bosses for the most part, because all these characters, Firefly and Deathstroke. I mean, these are characters that even a lot of DC fans don't really know that much about. And I think that actually puts the player more in the perspective of Batman, because they're having to learn things about these supervillains alongside Batman.
Sure, who is Electrocutioner? Is he a big deal or not?
Exactly, yeah. And of course the resulting fight, I won't spoil it here, but it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah,
and you kind of get the impression that the player's having the exact same reaction that Batman is at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting how he has this lineup, and even from the very beginning cutscene where they talk about this lineup, the characters themselves acknowledge they don't really know who this person is. So with Copperhead, there's new introduction from the game where they have a female Copperhead as implying that the Copperhead tradition is passed down or something.
Right.
Really interesting. But it has this moment where Alfred's last we knew Copperhead was a guy. We don't know who this woman is. We don't know this wild card. And a lot of these villains feel this way, where you, like Batman, have to figure out who these people are for the first time.
Yeah.
But the ones that you already
But at
know,
the same time, for someone for me and for Matthew, who have a very deep love of these characters here.
A little bit.
What you got there, Nightwing?
No Nightwing in this game.
I know, but he would have to be
It's
Decoration
year
Age 8
two.
at this
Arkham
time.
4. Yeah, you're right.
But you get to know before Batman does what he's what he's getting into, and in a way, you get to then relate to the danger as Batman is, but it's coming from a completely different direction. There, you know what the heck is up with Firefly. You know that this guy is a pyromaniac, he's a freak, and that you're going to be in trouble the second that you start fighting him. You know who the Joker is in this game before Batman does.
Yeah, that scene where Batman's like, Alfred, look up the Joker. You just get goosebumps.
You're like, you don't know?
You don't know.
You're Batman, and you don't know who the Joker is?
It's just you just know he's in for a very rough night.
This is going to be a very, very long evening.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially
a long Christmas Eve.
With characters like Deathstroke too, and how he works as a character. The thing I loved about this Batman game is the more you knew about the comic universe, the more you were rewarded with this video game.
Fantastic.
So many shout-outs to famous comics. Famous Batman comics like The Killing Joke, Long Halloween, Nightfall. All of them, year one, of course. All of these have a prominent role in the game while not feeling like the game copy and pasted their story arcs.
Right, and at the same time, you're getting some love from the side characters like Electrocutioner, who is a Nightwing villain even. And pulling in, I guess, another Nightwing villain, Deathstroke, who is now, at this point, a fan favorite after the work that's been done with some of the new 52 pushes.
Yeah, and the Teen Titans series.
And the Teen Titans series with Slade. But you get some of these side characters that really make this universe feel fuller. There's references to Green Arrow, with Queen Industries there. You get Amanda Waller showing up at the end of the game there, hinting at the Suicide Squad.
Well, even non-crazy Harley Quinn showing up.
That was just wonderful.
Yeah, it was,
and it did so much for developing the Joker in a way that was, as you said, referencing The Killing Joke, which is, and Mad Love. Yeah. Two of the greatest Batman stories ever written. There. Would you like to say a little bit about The Killing Joke and what was going on with Joker's origin?
So, The Killing Joke is a fantastic Batman comic by Alan Moore. And in it, it's all Batman versus Joker. And it's almost an entire piece on who Joker is and what he's like. And the big theme in it is the difference. Like Joker says to Batman at one point, the difference between you and I is one bad day. And it's so interesting how you kind of see that in this one too. In fact, it's directly related. At one point, Joker's taken into Blackgate Prison, and there he meets the future Harley Quinn. And
haunting scene.
And she's like, oh, these police officers have been so rough to you. I feel so sorry for you. And he just looks over to her and says, you ever really had a bad day? And for me, those are the gems of this game. Is how it so clearly knows Batman lore that I feel safe trusting it with different interpretations, like Copperhead or this introduction to who Joker is. It does a great job by showing that it's not wandering around in the dark, but rather leaning on the shoulder of great comics before it.
And I think that comic book fans can come in here and see that they weren't just taking the bits and pieces that they wanted and throwing them out there how they needed it to make a story work.
Yeah.
It actually fit really, really well. They took characters and kept them as who they were, shook it up a bit, and gave you something that was essentially made to fit a place in the Batman story that has already been done, but in a very new way.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I really, really, really loved it.
Well, but at the same time, what I liked is that they made an effort to make it so that it worked on its own, though. Like with all the comic book references that you were bringing up before, very few of those I picked up very few of those in the game. But at the same time, it didn't feel like they were making references for their own sake. Because I was not a huge fan, it didn't feel like it felt like the game was still very much made for me.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there are those references, because those references they work on their own merits.
Absolutely.
So I think one of the best things about this game is it really took sort of that Jeff Loeb style of storytelling and it did a seasonal game here, setting it at Christmas time. For some reason, this is one of those things that I think that Tim Burton, for all of the flack that he gets for his take on Batman sometimes, he really there's something special about Batman at Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. You get this very dark loner character during the season of family and warmth and all of these things. It's very Dickens in that way, in the way in which a ghost somehow is that much more frightening at Christmas time. But I really, really like that it was set at Christmas. There's so much going on here. Did you guys see any themes that played out with that?
Well, I really kind of thought it kind of ties into why you so commonly see Christmas used in these sort of stories where a lot of bad things happen, because it creates a nice contrast. It's like because Christmas traditionally it's just sort of seen as a season where things in the end mostly turn out good.
Yeah.
And there's so much hope. I mean think about how sobering some of the statistics we hear about how much higher suicide rates tend to get around Christmas time, and it kind of builds on that fear where it's like, okay, if something bad can happen on Christmas time, I mean it feels like if things aren't safe during Christmas, then they're never safe.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I also think, for me, Christmas is a really, there's so many themes in Christmas that you can really play off in the Batman universe. The Silent Night, take that as you will. But also, the really idea of, for me, one of the big things they played up in the game is the idea of presents and getting what you wanted for Christmas.
Gosh. Yes.
So, you have these characters who, Batman just wants, a silent night. Batman wants, Gotham to be okay while all these crazy things are happening. And we actually discover in this game what Joker really wants. It's really interesting how we have this play of what these characters want, and do they give what they want in this game.
It's really what's in Joker's basically getting the present is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I find that really interesting because you have Batman gets something else that's very Christmassy, is he gets family.
Yeah.
His relationship with Alfred just grows leaps and bounds.
There it is.
And he develops this. He's starting a relationship with Gordon.
Yeah.
With the GCPD, with Barbara.
Yeah.
And Batman's really developing a family, which is, as surprising as it may be for a lot of people, isn't. It's a huge part of Batman as a story. Is that he's a father figure for a lot of people. He has a family. The Bat family is very much a thing in a way that even Superman doesn't manage to match.
No.
And Christmas time, the way that family is so important at that time of the year, it's nice seeing that's what Batman walks away here. He may not have gotten the present of, he may not have gotten that perfect little wrapped up present of the perfectly silent night there in Gotham City. Joker ends up getting that sort of almost material thing for him there, for his gift. But Batman gets sort of the essence of what Christmas is, which is people around you, friends, family,
the things
support.
That really matter.
You don't just have to be this by yourself anymore in the cold of winter. I think we're running out of time at this point.
A little bit.
No, but I mean, we could just talk about the comics that
Yeah.
were used as sort of the fodder for this, and I think that we should at some point review.
We want to talk about the DC reboot?
No.
Okay, I guess not.
The what? No. Let's not go there. But if we could maybe get some closing thoughts, I think that would be. I think this.
Yeah,
would be
sure. I'll go first. So, like for me, some closing thoughts when approaching this game is, I don't know. Like, I don't want to scare away those people who haven't read comics. I want to say, like, for those of us who are like me and like Kyle have read a lot of Batman, there's a lot in here that you'll get rewarded for and not feel betrayed by playing Batman. For those of you who don't know, this is a great introduction game. I mean, even if you haven't played
It's
Arkham
an origin
Asylum,
game.
Yeah, even if you haven't played Arkham Asylum, even if you haven't played Arkham City, there's nothing you're missing here. It's like you can easily play this game and be the first Batman game you've ever played, and you won't miss a thing. Like, it'll just make you want to go back to those other games. I actually think returning to those games from this game can give you a really refreshing insight to these characters.
Well, yeah, and even to say something as a non-fan, it really, I've read 3 or 4 of the major graphic novels, like Killing Joke and Year One, and just sort of the ones that almost everyone it seems has read, or most people have read. And yet at the same time, this game was really fun to me, and it was constructing a very interesting universe. It wasn't like. It was very clear. You don't have to be just a huge Batman fan to enjoy the universe or immerse yourself in the universe.
Yeah,
and they clearly went and they went out of their way to do that, and they succeeded. And so it makes it accessible to really, I think, anyone. Even if you're not a huge Batman fan in general, I think the game is very much worth playing. In fact, this is it's actually probably a great place to start.
I think so.
Now that I think about it,
I think that this game really did a lot for pushing that story element. There were a couple of minor things that I could complain about, but they were mostly just like glitchy things that just...
And doors.
Felt, oh my gosh, doors. Batman's worst enemy. Only if you're Matthew playing.
Oh, hey.
But honestly, I love the game. I would love to see a sequel happen because I think there's room for that.
Yeah.
For instance, we know that Barbara Gordon has to become Oracle sometime between this game and the latter ones.
Yeah.
Why not tell that story? Why not introduce Dick Grayson? Dick Grayson, age 12.
Yeah, and they also, the game stayed very far away from the Catwoman relationship, which could be fantastically played up.
Yeah, and Harvey Dent.
Yeah, Harvey Dent. So
there's so much more to the Batman universe, to the DC universe, as at large that can come in, and it can be a new game. And I would just love to see them continue building with this, and to see some of this character work that we saw in this game happen again. That would be really great, and I could always use more Batman in my life. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. But, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Well, it's not really like there's a competition between PS and like PC. It's really just that PC gaming is how a gamer games, and how Xbox and PS3 or whatever is just those people that want to be gamers but don't really want to invest enough money to actually do something significant with it. Just saying, it looks like a good game. Better on the PC.
Dota nerd.